Hi, here's Michael Ender. I'm at the Middle East Retail Forum in Dubai, and I met somebody really interesting. His name is Martin. He's from SAP, and a lot of interesting stuff is going on in the retail space, but also at SAP. So I've asked Martin to share some of his knowledge. So listen in and follow the links in terms of the resources he's mentioning. Follow the links somewhere on this page. So over to Martin. Martin, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about who you are, what you do, where you're based?
All right. Well, my name is Maarten-Jan. I'm originally from the Netherlands, and I've been working in the Middle East for the last 8 years for a company called SAP. And it's an extremely interesting time to be active in retail because there's so much changing. And on top of that, I'm part of an organization that is in the middle of a big change as well. So yeah, it's an interesting time here in the Middle East.
So you mentioned SAP, and my perception of SAP is when we talk about software solutions is that it is
The big
how can I say?
monolithical
Yeah,
giant,
it's
right?
heavy,
Yeah, yeah.
it's slow, it's all these things.
Yeah, that's what we hear a lot because a lot of the perception in the market is really sometimes about what we've been doing in the past, right? And of course, IT is coming a long way. And you know, we started as a company 43 years ago, inventing an ERP system that has grown over time. And somewhere in the 90s, we became really big with hundreds of thousands of customers that are using our ERP system. Sometimes very happily, and otherwise that is a bit difficult. So I think one of the things that we've started doing very early on was to diversify out of ERP. So ERP is part of it, but it's definitely not the end all and the is all. What we started on the journey about 5 years ago to really transform the company. And you know, you don't just change the company overnight, especially not one of the biggest companies in Germany, 75,000 people across the globe, hundreds of thousands of customers. You can't just flip that around. So that is a real journey, and somehow doing this in a way that is bringing a lot of innovation, which is required to not become the new Kodak or Blockbuster, right? Because that's what happens if you don't change the game with your competitors. You're going to lose. So we're definitely doing a lot in the innovation space, specifically in retail. So that makes it a very interesting place to be.
And what are some of the trends that you are experiencing right now? People are talking a lot about customization and personalization. How do you see that space evolving, and how does SAP fit in?
Yeah, that's a very good question because actually you're right. Personalization and getting to a one-on-one relationship with your customer is absolutely the biggest topic in retail at the moment. The availability of technology, the availability of the internet, the availability of having access to information everywhere you are, whether it's on your mobile device, on your PC, or on your tablet, or everywhere, has changed the behavior of people in general, right? And we're all consumers, so that changes also the expectation that we as consumers have from brands when we consume brands. And so customer behavior is changing, and therefore retailers are expected to play into that. And it's very I always talk about my grandmother who unfortunately died about 10 years ago. She was 97 at the time. And she always, in her life, she always used to tell me stories about how her and her brothers had this little corner store in Rotterdam where I grew up before the Germans bombed it. Well, I didn't grow up there before the Germans bombed it, but she had the store there.
Yeah.
Anyway, they had a corner store that was servicing probably around 100 families in daily groceries. But the funny thing was that they knew their customers so in and out. They had 100 customers, so that was easy, right? But they knew when Mr. Jensen came in that exactly which kind of cheese he liked, and if that cheese wasn't available, which one can I actually suggest to him as a replacement? Or if that person got fired, you could pay next week, and so on and so on and so on. So that became a very close bonding relationship. World War II happened, the store disappeared, and after the Second World War, you see in Europe all these big mass marketing kind of supermarkets and hypermarkets emerging. And what happens is they lost their feel with customers. They lost the ability to have a one-to-one conversation with you as a customer and say, look, I know who you are, I know what your shopping pattern is, I know what you like and what you don't like, when your anniversary is and what your kid's first name is. Right? So all of those things I know, so I can have a conversation with you. They don't have that anymore, not with millions of customers. And definitely, even if you could collect all that information, having that information ready for you in real time when you want to have a conversation is not possible. So what we've seen a lot in retail over the last couple of years is that retailers are starting all sorts of little pieces of the puzzle to make that happen. So, you know, you now see retailers that say, well, because you're a gold customer, this is what we can do with you. Or because you've bought this product, we can give you that product. So that is something that are the beginning steps of what my grandmother used to be doing 80 years ago. Right? And I think retail is coming to an area where it's now coming full circle. So retailers will come to a place where they will be able to say to you, look, you know, come in, sit down, have a cup of coffee with me. I know you like this type of Nespresso with that kind of sugar, and here's your favorite biscuit. And I know exactly how to deal with you in an environment. Not, I mean, obviously not when you're doing your weekly groceries, but you know, in certain retail settings, that would be a very desirable thing to do. And do that at scale. What you need for that is a solid understanding of who your customer is. My grandmother used to have that, but that was 100 customers. So you need to have that, and you need to have that fast. So this is where SAP plays. At the moment, and a great example is a tool that we launched about a year ago. It's called HYBRIS Marketing, and what that actually does is it pulls in the different sources of data. Retailers have a lot of data about their customers. That's not the problem. Right? Retailers have point of sale data, which is massive. They have CRM data that's sitting there somewhere, and they may have done market research where they fed that into a system somewhere. They may have a loyalty system, which in 9 out of 10 cases is a completely separate database. They may have an SMS database, which they have another 500,000 customers somewhere. Then they have some information on Facebook. They have people who like them. If they're a multi-brand company, they will have multiple instances on Facebook. People who like that information, if you hit the like button, they have your email address. So you get all sorts of information. Somebody I liked can find out that I'm married, have 2 kids, and who my friends are. Very important information. So, you know, you can find out who follows you on Twitter, who follows you on LinkedIn. You have all these type of interactions with customers. The challenge that marketeers face is, how do I make a segment for a promotional campaign? How do I make a conversation happening with a customer in that small segment? How do I get that information? If that information resides in 7 different systems, or sometimes in 100 different systems, and some of those systems are not even owned by me, right? So how do I bring all of that information in? This is where hybrid marketing comes to play first of all. It gathers all the information in a single place, running on an in-memory technology we call SAP HANA, which is a game changer in the industry in itself. And that information actually allows you to do segmentation. That segmentation can go so quickly and so interactively that you don't have to wait for a lot of data to be crunched. It goes in real time. You can segment it down to whatever detail you want. And then you can use that information in the tool to actually drive marketing campaigns. And then the last step of that, so that means SMS campaigns or email campaigns or online campaigns or even Facebook banners or a printed document on the side of the big highway to do promotional stuff. And then the last step of the whole process, and this is where I think a lot of the value is for retailers as well, is in being able to measure the outcome of those kind of promotional campaigns, etc. And a typical CMO gets about 5 times the budget that a typical IT manager gets, right? So how much return on investment is there for that investment? A lot of companies will tell you, I have no idea. I'm doing a couple of billion in marketing every year. I don't know what the return on investment is. How much sales have I gotten because of this campaign particularly? Don't know. So how you make that measurable, and that's the last part where that plays. So that's a revolutionary product in the industry that I don't think anybody offers at this stage, where you have so many different features and functions. There is a couple of companies that can do some segmentation. There's, of course, a lot of big data companies that can say they can bring it all in a single place. But then to drive a marketing management tool on top of that is new, right? So that's one of the interesting things that we're having.
That sounds extremely interesting.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for sharing that, Maarten.
No worries.
We'll
My
share
pleasure.
some links.
My pleasure. Enjoy the rest of Retail Middle East.
We'll do our best.
All
Thank
right.
you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.